Last summer, I replaced these rust-bonded rear hubs with nice shiny new ones. This summer, I'm replacing the front knuckles with salvage knuckles. They have 80,000 less miles on them than mine. New bearings cost more than both of these guys. No sense in putting a $100 saddle on a $2 horse. Unlike last year, I allocated several days for the unexpected. Also, being a driveway mechanic, the weather's always a factor. I'm working on both knuckles simultaneously, spraying the rusty bolts with anti-seize, working on the forgiving ones, while the unforgiving ones soak and think about it. The driver's side lower ball joint bolt took ages of rocking back and forth before finally giving me a little hope, and even then you could hear the rust crunching. So I blasted the bolt at the split in the knuckle and let it soak. I did not want to snap that bolt. Here on the passenger side, you can hear the bolt pop with just a little movement. It's nice and loose now. Took a while. Wasn't as bad as the driver's side. A lot worse. It's so much rust over there. Let's see if we can knock this out now. Let's see. Here we go. I used a pry bar on the knuckle collars as instructed. However, mine needed a bit more encouragement, as usual. I placed a metal spike in the collar and hit it with a hammer to break the lower ball joint free. I used the tire tool to pry it the rest of the way out. One good push on the tire tool here. Be sure you got some of these boots, because the one on the other side was already torn. This one here I did myself. Yep. Sure enough. I think it would have been a better idea to remove the center caps of the wheels while the tires were still down. Let those nuts soak in blaster overnight and break them free. Using the tire tool as a brace works great if you don't care to damage the hub bolts. If you're just replacing the bearings and don't want to damage the threads, you could use a 2x6 with bolt holes drilled through the face of it and the bottom edge resting on the ground. Fortunately, I have a nice neighbor who lets me borrow her puller whenever I need it. Again, I had to use a lot of blaster on the spline. Turn the puller screw about 1/4 inch, rinse and repeat. You get the point. Okay, so this is day 4, and in my defense, I did lose a day because I had to go to town to drop off my rotors, pick up some parts, and a new breaker bar, hence the name. My friend and mill lady hollered at me that maybe I should call a mechanic because she's hilarious. I just smiled and waved like I'm doing here when she came to my rescue after I knocked my ladder over with the garden hose. I'll never live that one down. Good thing she's on time most days. So I'm using a log splitting wedge to open up the collar and calipers to check the fit. The wedge has just the right taper and a nice flat top to hit with your sledge. Whack. A little bit of rust flaking off there. I leave the wedge in until the collar quills to keep it from shrinking back. baby. Golly. That's some work now. Before putting the axle through the hub, don't forget to tighten the strut collar bolt, or you'll be knocking that knuckle back up, like someone else I know. Snug up the axle bolt for now. The replacement boots that I found on Amazon, they were an assortment of sizes, so I had to buy 2 packages. Ford doesn't sell them separately, go figure. Put some grease on the inside and work it back on. The bottom wire ring was still good to use. You just got to be you got to be nimble but aggressive. Oh, got it. Wow. Let's see if I can tap that in there. Ah! I torqued everything to spec, and now I'll finish up the drive side. I used a C-clamp on the strut to line the hub back up, the knuckle back up with the strut there. Uh-oh. Now my brakes are good, so I just took my rotor to O'Reilly's. They didn't even charge me. Not much left to turn, ma'am. They're a little pitted. I'll probably replace them next year. Make sure the heat guard isn't touching the rotor anywhere. Okay, if you forget to plug that in, like someone else I know, and you've already tightened everything up, you're going to have to jack it up, brace it again, turn your wheels. Let's see here. Tell me when I'm getting close. It's a good thing I forgot to bleed the brakes, because when I removed the wheel, I saw the top ball joint of the stabilizer link had snapped off and the strut bracket was lower than the link. This is where it was, and all I did was test drive and return the puller to my neighbor. So whoever said she should go ahead and replace the struts, you were right. The rest of y'all drink. So I wasn't exactly clear with my guys at the salvage yard when I said I needed the struts and the stabilizer links. So while I was waiting on my stabilizers to arrive, I installed the struts without any struggles, save one. I had to use a shoestring and a bolt on the end of it to hold the strut flush in order to get a bolt started. Other than that, everything went swimmingly. I bled all the brake lines with this handy little helper. I torqued the axle nut to 150 foot-pounds because that's the highest mine goes. I was finding conflicting torque specs for the axle nut between 100 and 199. This was a big job, and I think my next video is going to be how to put on eye makeup after 50.